and welcome to this month's Music by None. I am incredibly happy that my Douçaines sisters, Silke and Teresa and Raffaella, are here today, and we are going to be playing music on Douçaines, but also on recorders and even, drumroll, Crumhorns. And we're going to be playing music from the Henry VIII Manuscript. And it's a super interesting manuscript because at that point in time, very often a manuscript was a big choir book that sat in a cathedral or a chapel of a noble, or they were part books that were beautifully illustrated and beautifully bound and given as presents amongst the aristocracy. And in this case, they often had like one theme, even if it was like masses or it was a collection of motets or a collection of sacred songs. But the Henry VIII manuscript is really a huge mix. You have vocal pieces where all the parts have text for the whole time. You have instrumental pieces where it's really clear it's instrumental because of how it's written, but also there's no text. And you also have pieces which are vocal pieces, famous vocal pieces, but you'll only have a title because it was so famous, everyone knew what the text was. And that was kind of rare for the time. It also is a really interesting mix between some foreign composers, not many, but a few, English composers, and very often pieces composed by Henry VIII himself. Or, as you'll find out as we carry on, quite often when it says he composed them, it actually means that he added a last voice, and often the last voice was pretty bad. But it still meant that he got to put his name on the piece. And yeah, because actually I wanted to say something about that, because in a way everyone's like, oh yeah, Henry VIII, he just added this bad line and da-da-da-da-da-da. But yeah, I mean, like, come on, he wasn't a composer, he was a king. He was busy running whole country and having affairs and jousting and doing diplomacy and, you know, and beheading people. So, you know, there's probably not a lot of time to study counterpoint and harmony and like the perfect fourth voice. But he was very musical. From an early age, he had his own little like retinue of musicians. As a child, he had 3 minstrels, which I'm guessing might be an alto cappella because it's really referred to as 3 minstrels, and a lutenist to his own little private court, which is kind of cool because he wasn't at that point even intended to be king because he was the second brother. And he had lute teachers from an early age and recorder teachers from an early age. And over his life, he accumulated a huge collection of instruments. And I'm going to read the numbers because it's pretty impressive. He had 70 recorders, 70 flutes, 30 plucked instruments, 30 bowed instruments, 18 crumhorns, and 60 keyboard instruments. So, and some piping tables. So, I mean, obviously they're not all his, it's like for his many palaces and his many musicians, but still, that's really a very impressive number to have. And as well as kind of adding these bad fourth lines to some of the pieces in this manuscript, there are also a couple of mass settings which apparently he wrote and which were sung in his chapel for a while. So that's very sort of narcissistical somehow, but it's kind of wonderful to have a king that was promoting music in this way. So that's the theme of today. I'm going to invite the girls on, and we're going to start with some. What are we starting with? Some recorder pieces. I'm just going to quickly tell you what we're going to play. We're starting off with a version of Fortuna Desperata, and this was a very famous Italian poem that was set to music, and it was so famous and so beloved. You find it in 30 different sources and manuscripts sort of spread out all over Europe. In one of them it says it was composed by someone called Antoine Benoit, who was a very famous composer at the time, but probably it was written by an unknown singer in Florence called Felice di Giovanni Martini, and I think I'm going to go with that name because it fits the music by none theme. The core version is only 3 voices, but then many other people added a 4th voice, and that's exactly what happens in this manuscript. Somebody, we don't know, I think not Henry, added a 4th voice, and it's a 4th voice that's unique to this manuscript. And it's very cute. You'll find out, because I mentioned it several times, this manuscript is full of like just very bad French. And so the title of this piece is not Fortuna Desperata. In the manuscript it's written Fortune Esprit. And we're going to do it twice. We're going to hear like the core 3-part version, and then we're going to have the 4th voice added from this manuscript. Title La Mi, and it was written by Henry VIII, who was a Dutch composer who lived and worked in many of the famous musical centres in Europe, and he's one of the few foreign composers that's contained in this manuscript, and in fact he's the one who comes the most often. Of the handful of foreign composers, he's the one that's featured the most, so there must have been a nice connection there. The piece is found in 6 sources, and including he once recycled the music and used it as a credo in a mass. So that's very nice and very interesting. And it has 3 main parts, and then a fourth voice that only has 4 notes. A, E, A, G. And that's like using what we say today, the names of the notes, but in those days they used a hexachord system, and the names of the notes were ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And if you sing that with those words, you'd be la, mi, la, sol, which gives the title of the piece. And Silke has the wonderful job of playing these 4 very, very important notes throughout the piece. Oh, and the other thing that's really interesting about this is there is a letter written to the Duke of Ferrara in 1502. He was one of the d'Este dynasties. And it says, Isaac, the singer, composed a motet on the fantasy La Mi La Sol, and it was molto buono, and it was only written in 2 days. I'm just going to turn this down. We're not good. Jumping ahead of myself. Wow. So the next piece is a puzzle canon by an English composer called Absolut, with 2 F's at the beginning. And he actually had a pretty good career as a musician. He was the head of the musical what's the word, like retinue of musicians for the Duke of Buckingham, and then he also worked in the Chapel Royal for Henry. But only 2 pieces have survived, and they're both in this manuscript, and they're both puzzle canons. And it's called a puzzle canon because if you look in the manuscript, In fact, I suggest, look, it's in folio 26 verso. You have the three, it looks like it's a 3-voice piece, but we know it's a 4-voice piece. And if you look at the very end of the tenor line, there's a new clef, and then there's five notes written. And you wouldn't even really notice it unless you looked. And there's some weird little squiggles above those 5 notes that you can't really work out what that means. But some clever person realized that those 5 notes have to be repeated and repeated and repeated throughout the piece, but not in a kind of a logical, straightforward way. First time through, the notes are worth 8 beats. Second time it's 7 beats. Third time it's 6 beats, and so it goes on. I'm going to be playing that part, and I always play the notes for 1 beat less each time. So, and that's why it's known as a puzzle canon, because someone had to puzzle it out. I know a lot of notes to check how many we're close to something. There's a lot of concentration. To remember how many notes to play. So now we're moving on to, I was going to say some real instruments, but maybe that's too insulting. Some reed instruments, put it that way. This is one of my new toys. It's a bass Douçaine, and I won one of the new toys, and I'm really, really, really happy I bought it. It's very cool. So we're going to play two pieces on Douçaine Consort now, and I picked them because they've both got the name Adieu in the title, and as you hear, Douçaines are quite dulcet, soft, could even be melancholy instruments. So I picked these, what I thought were sad pieces. And the first one is in the Henry VIII Manuscript. It is called Adieu Madame, ma maîtresse, and it's obviously a very sad text. And it's a very sad piece, but apparently it didn't used to be. It used to be a three-part piece by someone called John Rastel, and it had a very, very, very different text. It was time to pass with goodly sport, and it was all about playing flutes and hunting and being happy and dancing. And then Henry VIII took this piece, he gave it a completely different text, a very sad French text, which apparently he also sort of very much butchers the text alignment. So if you are actually a French speaker, it just sort of doesn't fit with the flow of the music. And he added a fourth voice, which again is not the best voice in the world, but as we said, hopefully he was better at diplomacy and dealing with kingly things better than composing, with women. So we are going to represent this. We're going to play the piece twice. First of all, in a 3-part version with this happy kind of singing and dancing and enjoying life version, and then we're going to put the brakes on and slide into the Henry VIII version, and Rafa will join us, and we'll do the sad adieu version. And then while I'm talking, I'll just carry on talking and say the piece afterwards is a very simple through-composed piece. It's written by an English composer called William Cornish Jr. and it only appears in this manuscript. And I think it's quite intriguing and quite nice. It's quite nice, yes. Oh, by the way, Henry totally takes claim for the first piece because above each piece they write who the composer was, and in this one it just goes, the king. I don't normally get to play so now. It's really such a delight. The bass. So, guess what, guys? It's the most important moment of the afternoon. We're going to make a cocktail. So, I'll just very briefly tell you about the cocktail, and then because it's slightly complicated, we're going to have a little conveyor belt going on, and we're all going to make ourselves a cocktail. I often like to find a cocktail that has a connection to the music or a connection to the season, has some relevance, and if I don't find one that's suitable, I create one. Well, today I didn't have to look very far because there's literally a cocktail called Henry VIII. It has absolutely nothing to do with Henry VIII. I don't know why it's called Henry VIII, but it looks really, really cool, so I thought, yeah, I'm going to use it. It was created in 2004 by the very famous English mixologist, Henry VIII, and that sounds very French, doesn't it? Maybe it's Basel. And he won lots of prizes, and he set up something called the Worldwide Cocktail Club to promote cocktail making around the world. And but very sadly, he died of a heart attack on the London Underground. And if you've ever been on the Northern Line, I think that's a very good option. It can be quite interesting. So I'm going to enlist all you girls to help me. We need to first of all get four chilled glasses from the freezer. So maybe everyone can come and take up their own glass. So let's make a little So we start by adding a sugar cube, or I'm doing like a little tiny spoonful of sugar. So Silke? Mm-hmm. And then we add just like a splash of absinthe. Splash, kind of just enough to coat the sugar, and you can kind of try a little bit to incorporate the sugar. So just really a tiny bit, just to. And then it calls for 2 types of vodka, and I'm using the ones that were in the original recipe. And that's first of all citron vodka by the Dutch vodka maker Ketel One, and we add 1 shot. Mm-hmm. And then we add 1 shot of Absolut vodka, but the pepper version. And this is not very easy to find. There was 1 shop in the whole of Switzerland that sells it. Luckily it was in Zurich, and last weekend I had concerts in Zurich, so I did a little only because so I did a little detour. Well, actually no, it's kind of the case. I did a detour to this amazing spirit shop, and I bought this. But I think I spent my entire fee on all the other lovely bottles of alcohol that they have there. And then we do a little mix. And then we top it up with bubbles like champagne, or I'm going to use Prosecco just because I spent all my money on with bottles of gin and vodka.
It's never been that silent, no? We're all like focused on doing everything right.
It's like having a cocktail class. So, let's try and see whether it's worthy of the title Henry VIII. Cheers! To Henry! To Henry! To Henry! Cheers! Cheers, everyone! Cheers! So, let's see. Oh,
Hello, Henry.
oh wow, oh yeah. The pepper vodka definitely comes through. Yes.
Cleans the pipes.
Oh, it's spicy. And weirdly, I feel like it tastes really Tudor. I don't know why it tastes. It's Tudor. Like Henry VIII is a Tudor monarch.
I've never tasted a Tudor before. It's also new to me, then.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. Now that you're saying it,
yeah. I did one crazy. I spent a week once in a Tudor manor house in England where we all spend a week dressed in the right costume from the right year, and everyone cooked only kind of authentic food. There's a whole team of cooks. Their whole job every day was to just cook the food, and then there was like musicians and there's people, shepherds in the fields, and like it was a whole recreation. And somehow the food tasted like that, so maybe the mixologist did know what he was talking about. Yes. And often now I have a little chat with the musicians, but we've done that already twice because we've already appeared many times. So I just have one little question. Crumhorns, time for a revival? Dead
always.
silence.
Of course. They were never gone.
They were never gone.
Just in the underground.
Yes. Yes. And I'm asking that because you're about to be amazed and dazzled by some Crumhorn music.
How many did he have in his collection?
18.
18?
Yeah.
That's a nice number.
Yeah. It's like a Crumhorn orchestra or something. So
Polychoral Crumhorns.
Polychoral Crumhorns, that's what we need in life.
Polycrum.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one choir of Douçaines, one choir of Crumhorns, and one choir of rackets.
Oh yeah.
One
Choir of raclette. No.
of rackets. Sorry. Yes, so, shall we?
Okay.
Oh, yes, sure, yes.
Back to work.
Or we can do an open question.
Any questions to Henry? Any questions?
Music. So, we're going to play two pieces. The first one, it doesn't quite fit Crumhorns, but the title is Hélas Madame. So, it should be again one of these,
Elegant.
but it's It sounds nice on Crumhorns too. Again, this is a piece that was allegedly written by the king, and but the melody is found in 2 other sources, but these 2 other sources are sources that are only monophonic, only have melodies. So probably he took a famous melody song of the time and set it to other voices. And again, probably anyway existed as a 3-part piece in the Paris courts, because apparently the setting is quite similar to what was being written at the time there. And in this manuscript there's a 4th voice, and guess what? This 4th voice isn't the best voice in the world. So that's probably his contribution to the piece. But that was enough for him to sign it as the king. And I love how they spell the king. It's Kynge. The best. And then the last piece is also written by the king. And again, the cantus part was found in these manuscripts that only have the melody, only have monophonic songs. But it was probably a really very famous and sought after folk song, because also there's a version by Peppar has set it, and also you find it in Petrucci. So yeah, we're going to finish off with a nice kind of homophonic setting of a folk song. Before the cocktails and the so we'll have to have another special Crumhorn music one.
We'll come back.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
Okay.
We play it once and a half.
Once and a half, yes. end of April for something. I haven't decided yet what, but there will be more music and magic and cocktails very soon. Ciao!